So Vatican II happened, and of course they took the church and they reformed it, and they changed things in it. But all of a sudden, you got something else, to the point where now we got a pope that brought a South American idol into the church to worship.
Really?
He did. The Pachamama. He bought the South American, and he got
I don't know what that is.
It's kind of like a South American god, Pachamama.
Did he have an explanation for why he did it?
Yeah, it's kind of a weasel-worded thing of like, oh, all religions are just as good as one another. But, hierarchy even worshipped, they had a ceremony around it outside.
What?
So, well, that constitutes apostasy.
Yeah.
Jay. That's an apostasy.
Yeah.
Mel Gibson says that the Pope and the cardinals worshiped a pagan god, and that Pope Francis declared that all religions are equal. Father, is this true?
No, and I will address one by one. First of all, the Pope took a indigenous statue, which is indigenous to the peoples of the Andes, that was passed down to them by the Inca mythology that represents Mother Earth. Pacha meaning world or earth, Mama meaning mum, mother. St. Francis in his canticle says, sister, moon, brother, sun. He also refers to the earth as mother. But these are creations of the one true God, which is, as we know, the Holy Father, the Holy Son, the Holy Spirit. But the Church has, for 2,000 years, used profane symbols, artifacts, even structures, and converted them, consecrated them for sacred use. It's not unusual for the Church to bring into it something that up till then has been used or destined for profane usage in order to consecrate it or direct those who venerate or worship it to the one true God, which is Christ. There are 11 pagan churches in Rome that have been converted by the Catholic Church into what are now church sites, several of which where masses are being celebrated as I speak. Take one, for example, the Pantheon. The word itself is many gods, pagan gods. The Church converted that into a Catholic church. This is the Church's custom. And additionally, there are 3 Roman sanctuaries to the pagan god Mithras that were converted and built over with churches. Another example is the tonsure, the pre-Vatican II time, when priests said the Latin Mass, which I do, they would get a tonsure, the hair would be cut a certain way. This goes all the way back to Scriptures, Leviticus 19:27, goes back to the Nazarene vow that Paul took, goes back even to Buddhism and Hinduism. They would cut their hair and dedicate it to their God as well. So the Church can take something that preceded it, that did not start with Catholicism, and make it Catholic. Same thing with the wedding ring. It goes back to the Egyptians, who were not even Christian. They started the exchange of wedding bands for marriage. Then it passed on to the ancient Romans, and then the Church adopted that and made it sacred. The Church does that also with certain, what do you want to call them, decorations for Christmas, like the tree. The tree can represent the tree of life, found in the first and last books of the Bible, which is a beautiful symbol. But people can criticize it and say, oh, no, it has pagan beginnings, we should get rid of it. Same thing with the triangle, the pyramid. It started with the Church in terms of it representing God. And then the secret societies adopted what we used and used it for their nefarious practices. So if you see in a church a pyramid with an eye, they say, oh, that's the eye on the back of the dollar bill. The Freemasons are in the church. It's the other way around. The Church adopted that symbol first, and the secret societies take it and use it to work in the shadows, of course. And the list goes on and on. I mean, there are so many things that the Church has used. Take one more last example, logos. In Greek, it meant a pagan deity, logos. It meant an impersonal force that put things in motion in the cosmos. Now, this is a heresy because our God is not impersonal. He's 3 divine persons. What did Saint John the Evangelist do? The beloved disciple of Christ. He took a pagan word known in the whole world in which he lived as a pagan word, and he applied it to Jesus Christ. Imagine that. He said, Jesus is the Logos. And that's why at the end of the Latin Mass, on the left side of the altar, the priest reads from the Martyrology, the Gospel of John. In principiat erat verbum, et verbum erat apud Deum. So verbum means logos. Logos is Greek, verbum is Latin. So John took a pagan word and applied it to Jesus Christ. And every day when we say the creed, we don't even realize this. We're invoking a pagan word, but it has been Catholicized, consecrated, destined for purely sacred use in the way in which we use it during the creed or in the Gospel of John. Did the Pope and these cardinals worship the pagan god? Absolutely not. And I challenge anyone to provide me with a video, a photo, or even a statement asserting as much. You can't, because it does not exist. Rather, what the Pope did was he brought into the church the indigenous of the Andes, consider their deity, or where they render hyperdulia adoration like we render to the Blessed Mother. It's not latria, which is worship. It's hyperdulia, which is unique reverence. The saints, we give dulia, but Mary, hyperdulia. Regardless of how they looked at it, when the Pope brought in this statue, he didn't put it in place of the Blessed Sacrament. That would have been something else. He put it on the floor at the feet of Christ, where every knee will bend and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. So there's no worshiping going on here. And several statements have come out forcefully from the Vatican denouncing those who claim such things. Now, I'm sure the people who claim it are, in their own mind, doing good and they're defending the faith. God bless them. But they don't realize that there was no worship here. And that's why I challenge them, so that they can inform themselves of the truth here. Now, with respect to the Pope saying that all religions are the same, he never said that. In 2024, Pope Francis stated that all religions are pathways that lead to the truth. He didn't say they are the truth. Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger stated about 20 years ago that every heresy contains a truth. So when Pope Francis is saying that all religions lead to the truth, it means they contain some truth. Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger put out an encyclical document entitled Dominus Jesus, Article 5, in which he states that only the Catholic Church has the fullness of the revelation of Christ and the fullness of the truth, therefore. And so did De Verbum, a Second Vatican Council document. Article 2 said the same thing. So when we're talking about religions having some of the truth, but not all of it, there's nothing heretical about that. And I wish to ask those listening this question of whether or not the statement of Francis is accurate in the following fashion. Number one, did you choose which religion to be born in? No. Most of you did not. Did you choose what country you would be born in? No. Did you choose what parents would give birth to you? No. Is there any merit in that? No. That's 4 no's. Is God going to hold you responsible if he chose that you should be born in an indigenous Andes community, brought up according to that faith with Pachamama? No. God would consider that a virtue, not by definition of the context of that religion, but by definition of the virtue of obedience to your parents. In the Old Testament, God revealed to Moses, obey your mother and your father. A child should do that. So if a child follows the religion of his or her parent, regardless of its content, the child's not responsible because their brain is not fully formed. They don't fully know right from wrong. They don't even know how to do research on religion yet. So it's a virtue for the child to be raised in the religion of the parents. That's what God sees. We look at it from just a Catholic perspective and we point our finger. God does not do that. He sees the context. Now, as that person matures, attains the age of reason, begins to think things through, then begins the vocation search. And then the responsibility grows in that individual, where now they're more culpable for the choices they make. But there's always that factor of the family pertaining to that religion, and it's part of their upbringing. God sees all these conditions that we don't. And therefore, we should not be harsh to these people, to whom the Pope is charitable when he's welcoming them to the church without ever preaching of an evisceration of the truth, a heretical doctrine, or any false idols or gods, which he's never done. No Pope has done that. Not even Pope John Paul II when he went to Assisi in this ecumenical gathering with Buddhists and Hinduists and patriarchs and all these other Christians, Protestants. Same thing with Ratzinger. He went to the same ecumenical Assisi gathering, and so did Pope Francis. There's a difference between a true ecumenism, which never departs from its point of origin, which is the proclamation of the saving truth of Christ, and its transmission by the apostle and its articulation through the magisterium, and a false ecumenism, which is changing doctrine and morals. The Pope has never done that.
I don't adhere to a post-conciliar church. I adhere.
Can you define what that means?
Okay. There was an event that happened in the 60s. First, there was an event in the Vatican where they elected John the 23rd Pope, right? He was elected, and it was a very funny thing that happened in the conclave. You know, usually there's white and black smoke that goes out of the chimneys to tell you, we have a Pope, you know, habemus papam, you know. And the white smoke came out. And everybody cheered, and they went crazy. And then about a half an hour later, black smoke came out. That never in history has that happened. But never was it known that white smoke came out, then black smoke came out.
So what was the scenario?
That somebody was elected, and that maybe something else happened.
So, Father, first there was white smoke, and then there was black smoke? Was there some type of conspiracy here?
No. Let us recall in 1958 this conclave took place, and it was between the dates of the 25th and 28th of October. And on the 11th ballot, well, let me go back a little bit. During the conclave, which means with key, the bishops are enclosed from the world, they cast 4 ballots a day. And at the end of the casting, they burn them together with some chemicals. I'll go into that in a moment. And on the 11th ballot, Cardinal Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli was elected, who would eventually take the name of John. And since they do not communicate, that is the consistory of cardinals, with the outside world, they devised a human imperfect method with which to do so. Smoke. If you ever look at the facade of St. Peter's, and just to the right, you'll see a little projection, a little stove sticking up just past the roof. It's coming out of the Sistine Chapel. And there are these 2 90-foot long stoves or pipes sticking out, and this is where the black smoke comes out if after a vote there's no pope. And white smoke comes out if after a vote there is a pope. So in answer to your question, at the end of day 4, well, end of day 3, it was white and black, momentarily white, then black. And then on day 4 was white, and we had Habemus Papam, a new pope, John. What most Catholics fail to realize is that a series of chemicals are used with the ballots to produce what is black or white smoke. Now, it's an imperfect method, and this imperfection has been seen during the conclave and election of Pope Benedict XVI, who was the prefect for the Congregation of Faith, and Saint Pope Paul VI. On both of these occasions, the smoke was mixed. It was neither black nor white. And the people were confused as to whether or not it was a true pope that was elected. Now, why on these 3 occasions was the smoke different than what those burning the ballots intended it to be? For black smoke, one must combine the chemicals of sulfur, potassium, chlorate, and anthracene. In order to produce white smoke, one must use potassium chlorate with lactose, which is a sugar, and resin, mostly pine from a tree. Now, if somebody uses a little bit too much potassium chlorate or too little anthracene, it will invariably change the color of the smoke, making it appear gray rather than black. And that's what happened with Pope Paul VI. It came out gray. They didn't know if they had a pope or not. And the same with Ratzinger. It was intermittently black and white. And why does this happen? Because of the mixture of chemicals. It has to be very precise. And if just a few percentages off of anthracene or potassium chlorate is added, it could change things. Let us suppose, for the sake of argument, a pope was elected, but he declines the office of the papacy, and another was elected by a two-thirds majority vote in his stead, resulting in smoke that goes from white to black, then to white again. Regardless of the smoke, the newly elected candidate, Giuseppe Roncalli, becomes a validly elected pope, regardless whether or not he was elected before or after the white or black smoke. So in the end, black or white smoke means little.
The man who came out was a man called Angelo Roncalli, and he was John the 23rd. Now, it's interesting to note that never had a pope taken the name of another pope ever before in history. But this man took the name of a known anti-pope from the 15th century. So he took the same name as that guy, John the 23rd. So it's interesting, don't you think? I mean, why would he do that?
Now, the dean of the cardinals escorted him, which is customary for the dean of the consistory of cardinals to do. The newly elected candidate accompanied him to what's called the weeping room. And then he always asks the same question, which is, what name do you take? In answer to the cardinal's question, this is what he had to say. I wish to be called John. The name is sweet to us because it is the name of our Father. It is sweet to us because it is the name of a humble parish church in which we were baptized. It is the innumerable cathedrals scattered throughout the world, the first and foremost is St. John Lateran, where the Pope's seat is, cathedra. But he adds, but we love the name John so dear to us and to all church, particularly because it was borne by two men who were closest to Christ the Lord, the divine Redeemer of all the world and founder of the church, John the Baptist and John the disciple and the evangelist. This is not the first time a pope has taken the name of a predecessor. In 533, Mercurius, the name of a pope, did not want to take his own name because it was the name at the time of a reigning Greek god. Right? The Roman god also called Mercury. The Greeks had their own name for it. So he adopted the name of John II in honor of his predecessor, John I. The church gave 23rd to his name. He didn't pick 23rd. He just chose John. But by the church doing so, it was fortuitous, in my opinion, because here we have an anti-pope from the 15th century named John the 23rd, who acknowledged he was anti-pope shortly before he died. And in taking the name John and the church giving to the end of that name the Roman numerals 23, it definitively confirmed that the 15th century apostate was an anti-pope. So it supplanted that false pope with a true pope, who was Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli. And therefore, this made it clear by the special church law governing conclaves that all the cardinals he would appoint are validly elected cardinals, unlike those appointed by the anti-pope John the 23rd of the 15th century. And all the priests that would be ordained by those cardinals or bishops would be validly ordained priests, etc., etc. Now, I wish to add one more thing. People don't really understand what an anti-pope is. We've had over 40 in the church. An anti-pope is never a real pope. He was never validly elected during a conclave, which requires a two-third majority cardinal vote. Over 40 anti-popes were never really popes. They were claimants to the throne, seeking to usurp the Petrine powers, but never did. So every act of governance, every statement on morals and faith, and every act of discipline was invalid. And people caught on to that during the reign of these 40 anti-popes. Even the time of Catherine of Siena, we had 3 that were claiming to be popes. Only one was the true one, who fled to Avignon, and she, as well as Bridget of Sweden, called him back to Rome, which he did. The church has been given a guarantee in Matthew 16. When Jesus turned to Peter, Peter doesn't represent the man. It represents the office of the papacy. He said, upon this rock, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. That means no matter who's elected pope, and this is a dogmatic statement of the First Vatican Council, has the authority of Peter. And he will not be led astray. This is a teaching of the First Vatican Council in the 1850s, where the Pope was declared infallible on matters of morals and faith, and the Virgin Mary immaculately conceived by Pius IX, who also was a saint. No Pope truly elected, validly elected during a conclave, has ever preached heresy or schism in 2,000 years. You can't do that by human effort. And I put out a book to challenge those and dispute those who claim that there have been heretics. It's not true. I go through all the popes and I show that what has been asserted, attributed to them of having asserted some falsity regarding faith or morals, is unsubstantiated. The book is called Can a Pope Be a Heretic? You can find it as a free download online on my website.
But last question, Father. What do you think of his movies? What do you think of his movies?
Oh, Mel Gibson. I think he's brilliant when it comes to the movies. I watched several of his films, from The Passion of the Christ, which was a home run, to The Braveheart, to Conspiracy with Julia Roberts, to the many others. He's a great actor, great director.